Hello, everyone. Be honest, have you ever heard someone say, eat apples, they're very healthy, while someone else said, no, apples can hurt your stomach? Thinking face. And you sit there thinking, who should I believe? Because since childhood, we have been told that apples are almost magical fruits. But on the internet, there are lots of horror stories. They increase acidity, cause stomach pain, and are full of sugar. So what is the truth? Are apples really bad for our stomachs? Today we will sort everything out, but I promise, without boring science. We'll talk simply, as it is. How do you feel when you eat an apple on an empty stomach? How does one apple in the morning differ from 3 in the evening, and is this fruit really as safe as we think it is? So make yourself comfortable, it's going to be interesting. Hello again, everyone. So, today's main question is, are apples really bad for your stomach? You know what's interesting? When you say the word apple, everyone imagines something different. For some, it's childhood and grandma's garden, for others, it's apple pie, and some even think of an iPhone. But the fact is that this fruit is literally everywhere around us. And since childhood, we've heard, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. But let's be honest, when was the last time you actually ate an apple every day? Grinning face with sweat. Personally, I can eat apples for 3 days and then not look at them for a week. But here's where it gets interesting. Some say apples are a superfood, full of vitamins, fiber, and energy. Others warn, don't eat apples on an empty stomach, or you'll get heartburn and stomach pain. So who should we believe? Let's break it down in simple terms. First, apples are fiber. Think of them as a natural brush that cleans your intestines. That's why sometimes after eating an apple, your stomach may rumble. But that's not always a bad thing, it means your system is working. Secondly, apples contain fructose, a natural sugar. And this is where people often start saying, aha. So apples are bad for you because they contain sugar. But, seriously, folks? The same sugar is found in bananas, grapes, and even carrots. And no one says, oh, don't eat carrots because they're sweet. But if you have acidity problems or are prone to gastritis, then yes, an apple on an empty stomach can cause discomfort. And here the main thing is to know the measure, not 3 apples in a row on an empty stomach, but 1 after a normal meal. Tell me, have you ever eaten an apple at night and then lay there thinking, why did I do that? Grinning face with sweat. That's exactly when your stomach protests. But again, that doesn't mean apples are bad for you. It means that you need to know when and how much to eat. So, the first truth is this: apples themselves are not harmful to the stomach. They can only cause discomfort in certain situations, for example, if you eat them incorrectly. But what is so special about them that they have become a symbol of health around the world? More on that later. Okay, we've already figured out that apples are not some kind of enemy of the stomach. But why then do nutritionists always recommend eating them? Let's look at it more simply. 1 medium apple contains about 95 calories. That's 3 times less than a chocolate bar, and it can really fill you up. It contains about 25 grams of carbohydrates, 19 grams of which are natural sugars. And now the most important thing, it also contains almost 4.5 grams of fiber. And fiber is not about sugar, it's about keeping your intestines working so you don't feel heavy. Imagine this balance: there is sweetness, but it is immediately packaged in a brush that helps you digest it properly. Plus, apples contain vitamin C, which is like a natural shield for the immune system. They also contain potassium, which keeps blood pressure normal, and even calcium. Who would have thought that apples contain calcium? And here's the most interesting part: scientists and nutritionists say that apples can help reduce the risk of heart disease. What's more, they are even associated with a reduced risk of certain types of cancer. And this is not just grandma's advice, but actual scientific observations. But there is one but. Due to their natural sugar content, apples can quickly raise blood glucose levels. Therefore, nutritionists advise not to eat them on their own, but to combine them with something else. For example, an apple with a spoonful of peanut butter is an ideal snack. Or an apple with a piece of cheese or yogurt is also great. This way, it doesn't cause a sharp spike in sugar and keeps you feeling full longer. In short, friends, apples are a versatile fruit. They can be a simple snack, part of a heart-healthy diet, or a boost to your immune system. But, as with any food, it is important to know how and when to eat them. Even the healthiest food can be ruined if you overdo it. Okay, let's move on. Look, it seems like a simple apple. But it actually affects many systems in our body. Let's start with digestion. An apple is like a natural detox. Thanks to fiber, it acts as a brush for the intestines. And it's no wonder that nutritionists say, if you want to make your stomach feel lighter, eat apples with the skin on. Because it is in the skin that most of the fiber and antioxidants are found. Now about the heart. Studies show that apples help lower cholesterol levels. Why? Because fiber literally binds excess cholesterol and removes it from the body. And there is also potassium, which keeps blood pressure normal. So, 1 apple a day is a small contribution to a healthy heart. Next up is blood sugar. Sure, apples are sweet, and a lot of people think, oh, that means they're bad for diabetics. But nope. On the contrary, apples help keep your sugar levels more stable thanks to that same fiber. Especially if you eat them right, not on an empty stomach and preferably with something protein or fat. For example, an apple with a handful of nuts is ideal. And another interesting point is cancer prevention. It sounds serious, but apples are actually considered a fruit that reduces the risk of certain types of cancer. All thanks to antioxidants. These are natural substances that fight cell damage. To put it simply, they prevent the body from wearing out too quickly. But there is an important nuance here: apples are not a magic pill. If you eat fast food and then eat 1 apple for balance, it will not save the situation. Apples work when they are part of a normal diet. And another thing, apples really help keep your weight under control. Because they are quite voluminous and low in calories. This means you feel full quickly, but don't overeat. Imagine, it's better to eat a large apple than a bun. The effect on your figure will be completely different. Okay, but now the main question, should you eat apples every day? Honestly, many people take the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, literally. But do you really have to force yourself to cut up an apple every day? Nutritionists say yes, it's beneficial, but not critical. In other words, if you skip a day without an apple, nothing terrible will happen to you. It's more important to include fruits and vegetables in your diet in general, not apples specifically. There are interesting studies that have shown that even 3 to 4 apples a week provide significant benefits. They reduce the risk of heart problems and help keep blood pressure normal. And if you eat apples every day, the benefits are even greater, especially for digestion. But, it's not every day that's important here, but regularly. If you always have apples at home and eat them several times a week, that's great. But, for example, eating 5 apples at once because you haven't eaten them for a week doesn't work. It's like going to the gym, it's better to do a little bit regularly than once a month and go all out. So the answer is simple: no, it's not necessary every day. Several times a week is enough to reap the benefits. But if you have the opportunity and you like apples, then 1 apple a day will definitely not hurt. On the contrary, it will give you a feeling of lightness and support your health. Okay, we've talked a lot about digestion, the heart, and blood sugar. But apples actually do even more cool things for the body that many people don't even realize. For example, bones. Yes, apples can help bones become stronger. Studies show that people who eat apples regularly have slightly better bone density. So, they're not just a tasty treat, but also a small investment in your skeleton. Another interesting point is the brain. The antioxidants in apples help fight stress and oxidative damage to brain cells. This can slow down age-related changes a little and even improve memory. Imagine, an apple for the brain is like charging a phone, only for thoughts. Grinning face with smiling eyes. And another thing, apples can help you sleep better. A small amount of natural melatonin plus low glycemic index carbohydrates can maintain blood sugar levels at night and help you sleep more peacefully. In addition, apples can reduce the risk of asthma. Yes, it sounds a little strange, but studies show that people who regularly ate apples were less likely to have asthma. And here's another useful life hack: the variety matters. For example, Granny Smith apples are often recommended for weight control and maintaining healthy gut flora. Red sweet apples are great as a snack because they quickly provide energy. So, friends, apples are not just a delicious fruit. They are beneficial for digestion, the heart, the brain, bones, sleep, and even the lungs. And all this without any chemicals. Nature simply provides its own superfood. Green apple.